Meeting come to order of Monterey Principal Water Management District on November the 17th. We will do Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, would you start? Pledge of Allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You?
Chair Riley, would you like me to take roll call?
Oh, that's right. That comes first. Somebody, I think the flag ought to come first.
It's fine.
Out of order, please call the roll. Roll call.
Let the record reflect that Director Daniels is absent. Director Edwards.
Here.
Director Lindor.
Here.
Director Paul. Here. Director Dwayne.
Present.
Vice Chair Oglesby.
Here.
Chair Riley.
Here.
Yeah, just point of order, Chair, so we're correct. She's not on the board yet, is she?
Yeah.
She has already been sworn in, yes.
Okay, so this is ceremonial.
Yes.
Okay, just for the public. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So, yes, so that is the next item to confirm.
Oh, my goodness, searing in. You've been sworn in.
Searing, no,
Oh,
please look at the.
yes, yes.
The searing, it's gonna be searing.
Well, you're not.
Oh, and the chair's agenda. Yeah,
If you don't want to.
yeah, it's a little initiation we do.
Test, but
Yes. You don't have to.
The searing comes later.
Yes.
You guys first, yes, you know how to spell.
So how is that protocol ceremonial work?
Well, at this point, she came in, had district orientation and did her swearing in with Sarah already. So you grandly welcome her as a new board member and make an announcement to the public so they won't forget her name.
Well, we will make an announcement first and welcome to the Water District Board of Directors. The newest member and the one with the biggest smile, I believe, in the room. So, welcome aboard and look forward to working with you. By the way, I knew she'd been sworn in. Wow, how many virgins? So I appointed her to all of the committees that Amy had served on. If there are any committee meetings between now and when the whole committee structure might be changed around. So anyway, welcome to all of that.
Welcome.
And Mary Ann Gawain. Welcome. Any other?
So why was it on the agenda then? I mean, just for the rest of us. Okay, that's all. I just want to say that out loud, because I would have liked to have seen that. I would like to welcome her to the board. And so welcome. Thank you for putting your name in the hat, and we look forward to working with you.
So nothing official except welcome. It's in the minutes.
Welcome from all of us.
Yes. For mine.
Okay, let's go with the agenda. Any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No, they are not.
Okay, moving ahead to oral communications. Anyone wishing to address the board? Present or online?
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay, anyone in the room? Okay. We'll proceed to the consent calendar. Consent calendar includes 4 items. The minutes from October 20th, treasurer's report for September, the first quarter financial report, and the first quarter fiscal report, which is an investment report. So are there any questions or comments from the board on that item? On any of the consent items? And if there's no comments. Sure.
So I watched the meeting on video and I have tried to assess this, looked at the minutes and so on and so forth. But I don't know if you want me to stand for this vote. Are you gonna vote on this or you just move them into?
We will have a vote. We will have a vote on this at the consent calendar, the items. And I don't know.
But through the chair, legally, you do have standing to vote and approve the minutes on the basis that you have reviewed them and you believe them to be accurate.
Okay, that's been clarified. So I'd entertain a motion to accept the consent calendar, all 4 items.
I so move.
Second,
Moved in second, roll call, please. We don't need a roll call vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passed, vote noes. Okay, motion carries, the consent calendar is approved. To the general manager's report.
Well, thank you. I know everyone's all excited that the new water year has started. So happy New Year. Which also means we only have a month of data, so there's not a whole lot to talk about. However, there are a couple of things. So as Sarah loads up the presentation.
Rain.
That's the big one. So what you'll see on the first page here in a second is just the 2 pieces of the Monterey Peninsula Water Resource System, which is the Carmel River Basin and the Seaside Groundwater Basin. And what actual looks like relative to the target, and the target being part of that quarterly water budget. And what you'll see is that both of them are slightly below the target or the budget. So next slide, Sarah, if you can. There we go. And there's a reason for that, which we'll see on the next slide. We delivered far more pure water Monterey water because we're beginning to see the implementation of the expansion project. So they're taking the new car out for a ride and trying to run at a higher million gallon per day rate. And so in October, we actually delivered 413 acre feet. And so Cal-Am allocated all 413 acre feet. Mike, what's that? Only the second time, third time that we've gone at 400, you remember? Sixth time. And so over the course of the next, call it 9 to 12 months, we'll be ramping up and seeing how the project can perform. And then eventually at that point in time, so about 12 months from now or 12 months from a month from now, but we will notify Cal-Am in writing of what's called the performance start date, at which time thereafter we will be contractually obligated to deliver the full complement of water from the expanded project. So right now we're just trying to see how it works and how sustainable it is. These winter months are when we're going to have to really make hay when it rains or whatever it is. And so it'll be important to see what we do here, November, December, January, because these are months where there's less competition for the source waters with growers and so forth. So we're very excited about it, heading in the right direction. But because we were over there, they were under a little bit on the Seaside Basin and the Carmel River. Not necessarily equal, but that's what's going on. And you can see Sand City actually performed kind of where it's been performing. We've had an internal conversation about changing the 25 because the 25 is based on a 300 acre foot per year kind of faceplate capacity for that project. Even with a replacement source well, it's probably never going to be much more than 200 to 25 or something like that. So that's what's going on there.
Questions?
Yeah.
Yes, question. Why is it's in red to 83? If pump should be black, right?
Well, so we targeted 330 and exceeded, and so the variance is black when so in the previous page, when we don't quite reach the target, and so it's red when it's over, and it's just,
Okay.
but your thinking is right. You think it'd be positive because you're over.
Yes, that's why.
And we just have to,
Okay.
yeah, it's just certified hydrogeologists.
Okay.
What process?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Next slide, not a whole lot to show here. This is production for customer demand. except that we're already 62 acre feet lower than last year. And you may remember that the conversation the first 4 months of last year were, oh, we're 50 acre feet over the prior year. Oh, we're 60 acre feet. We ended up about 120 acre feet over last year, over 2 years ago. And so now we're starting off, and I think it's due to the October rains and so forth that there's been less irrigation. Next slide, please. So now we get to talk about rain, and you can see the close of October, the blue bar exceeds the red bar. The blue is this year and the red is the long-term average. We're not talking big numbers here, so it's just over an inch on October. But the next chart is kind of interesting because here we are at basically mid-November, the 17th, and we have, as of today, we're at 4.54 inches of rain.
Oh.
And the long-term average for all the way through the end of November is about 2 3/4. So we're off to the races, kind of way ahead, which of course has got our team all excited, working with Cal-Am to prepare for the ASR season, which could start no sooner than December 1st. And there's still a ways to go on that, which we'll talk about on the next slide. In here, you can see unimpaired stream flow for October was about the long-term average. But the interesting thing is Los Padres Reservoir 4 days ago on the 13th was at 1,015 feet elevation. And late afternoon today, it was at 1,026. So in 4 days, it's gone up 11 feet. And it has 14 more feet to go before it will start to spill. And if we get probably one more good storm, like not today, but the one Thursday, I think was Thursday, Friday, ended Saturday. So we're hopeful that we start spilling before the end of the month, which would be a great setup that we, typically like last year, we didn't even achieve that till about the third week of December. So pretty good. And that concludes that report. We have another item that Assistant General Manager Mike McCullough will walk you through.
Thank you, Dave. I want to kind of give you a quick update on the tour we gave at the end of October. So many times when some of the conferences that we go to are in town, you have the opportunity to network with a lot of different officials from around the state. And so we've known this one gentleman for quite a while and meeting at conferences or calling them for some advice, things of that nature. And so at the Aqua meeting in May, we had lunch together and then we're talking about doing a retreat for his staff. And we always offer up, hey, we'll come down and we'll show you a couple things. So, you always say that you don't know if anybody's ever going to take you up on the offer. Well, lo and behold, in August, he reached out. He goes, hey, we want to come down. We're having a staff retreat. Could you provide a tour for us? So we said, certainly. And so what we did is we devised a tour for him, not only to see some of the district's projects, but also they wanted to see the Pure Water Monterey project. And so that's the slide that we have here. And so it was a great team effort. We utilized a lot of people from the environmental services group as well as water supply. And
who are these people that we were giving the tour to, Mike? Okay, all right.
So our main contact was the Department of Water Resources. So the gentleman that we worked through was the manager of the Division of Regional Assistance. So they had brought all of their managers and supervisors from around the state to Monterey to, have a retreat and talk about, things that they're working on. But also many of them had works on the concept of the integrated regional water management program, where they give grant monies to different regions and then you implement projects. So that was some of the people that had worked here or came here. And so some of the people that came had worked on projects that were here 15 years ago.
Wow.
So it's kind of a really neat experience to interact with them. Say, oh, well, yeah, I knew Larry Hampson. I worked with him on such and such project. So really, really exciting. So the first slide we had was, we're on a really definite timeline. And so we had to see a lot of things in a short amount of time. And so we took 15 to 20 minutes and had a picnic lunch out at the Carmel Valley Village Park. So Thomas Christensen got the sandwiches, met us there, we unloaded, had lunch, loaded right back up. And the next slide is we had Corey Hamilton gave a tour of the Sleepy Hollow facility. So we were there about 45 minutes. So, kind of talked about how we take water in from the river, how it gets treated, and how the fish facility works. So the next slide is Corey, Thomas Roberto, having them stand inside the fence on the channel where the fish are being reared, answering questions. It's just kind of talking about how the district has been doing this process for over 25 years, how successful it's been, the different type of experiments that we're doing in relation to the facility. And then since there were fish in the facility, they got to see them next slide, feed the fish. So that was kind of a neat experience. And so, some of the fish are on the small size, 3 to 4 inches, and some of them are in the foot range. So they were excited to see that, had some great questions. And then from there, next slide, we stopped by and had Will Baker Hicks give a tour of ASR. And so we were only there like 10 or 15 minutes, but just explain the process of how to take water from the winter, store it in the ground. And then from there, we went right out to Pure Water Monterey, gave a tour of the demonstration facility, but also gave a walking tour of the bigger facility. That was like that at the ribbon cutting. And the gentleman on the left, you can see that's our main contact, Arthur Hinogosa. And he's the one that was directing the 27 staff members that were there, and he took a drink of the demo facility water. So really well received. And she sent me an email on Friday thanking our team, the district team, for a chance to learn about all the different activities that we do down here. And it was a great way for them to kickstart their retreat. So I just want to share that with the board. Very well received. And, like I said, we always offer these type of tours to other organizations and staff members from around the state. And I'm glad to see what you think of so far. Any questions?
Good. It was a good source of staff. I mean, the organization that, whatever it is, the Department of Water, I forget all the names of them, sent their staff down. That was a good connection.
Yeah, it's really an important piece of outreach because we secured a grant from them for the expansion project. We have gotten more involved in reporting because we are now a water wholesaler. So we're filing an urban water management plan for the first time next year. And we're starting to scrutinize what's called the WUI, the Water Use Efficiency Portal, public portal for submissions by not just California American, but submissions that we may have to do in the future. And through Art, he helped arrange to get us some data, or get to the right people in his organization to get data. So it's just really nice that that they called us on the debt, I guess, and that we put together the trip for them. It's a good relationship. So
I want to call out Sandra. Jill's assistant. She had to make special delivery. So I told you we kept a pretty tight timeline, and we left one of the persons at the hotel. So Sandra had to go back and figure out who she met us at the second stop. So it was not all was lost, but it was just a really good team effort. And I think the staff enjoyed it to share their experiences of, our knowledge that we have here. And I'll always say this about people in the state and employees from the state. They understand and know a lot about Monterey One water. Not Monterey One, but the politics and the issues we have on the peninsula. A lot of people are very well read about our situation. And so it was good to give them some nuggets of saying, hey, we're solving some of our own issues. It's taken us a while, but we're starting to get there. So they were real appreciative.
Well, I want to compliment the district, continue to compliment the district on this management planning process that we do. We submit grants from other agencies around.
Right.
We're the key on putting making all the connections. When the money comes in, we get the money, we give it to the agency that's asked for it with no fee. Normally, a traffic cop with grants like this often take a fee, 5%, 10%, something or other. We take nothing. I just think it's a great role that we play, and it's a great service that we provide for other water district and others that have interest in, I don't know, moving conservation of water forward. Smart water planning. Okay, any other questions to staff?
One quick comment.
Sure.
It just, to state the obvious, but I'm so glad that you were able to pull that together with virtually no notice to take advantage of that opportunity, and sounds like, building those relationships and showing those people in particular, what we've accomplished here. It's very, very helpful in lots of ways. So I'm really pleased that you're able to do it.
Okay, thanks, everybody, for those reports, and we'll go to item 7, which is report from the district council.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, the report is found on page 33 of your packet. The new information is highlighted in yellow. As you can see, it's a little bit of a slow month in terms of litigation, but I will just quickly run through the report. The first case, this is the Water District versus Cal-Am. This is the eminent domain proceeding to fulfill the electoral mandate of Measure J and acquire the Cal-Am's water system. The district and Cal-Am's motions to narrow the scope of this proceeding are set for hearing on December 12th at 8:30 a.m. The next case management conference is also scheduled for December 12th. And that case management conference will address progress issues such as pending discovery efforts and the trial calendar. So next month, you'll have a more robust discussion on that case. The second case, this is the district versus LAFCO, where we're challenging LAFCO's decision affecting and limiting the district's power to acquire Cal-Am's water system. The district's brief in that appeal was filed last week. LAFCO and Cal-Am will next file their closing reply briefs. Those are due in mid-January 2026, and then we'll proceed forward from there. For item case 3, there's been no update. This is the City of Marina versus the Coastal Commission. We've already, we've directed council to move forward on that appeal. We have no update there. Similar with all the matters before the CPUC, there's no update on those. There's been no movement. When there is movement, we'll be sure to update the board on that. Regarding
Just for people's information, that there are applications for a hearing pending.
right,
Yes.
they're pending, but there's no update from the last.
Right. I'm just saying because, people may not know or remember, that's all.
Yes, there are applications pending. Regarding the Water District versus the State Water Resources Control Board, this is that 2010 case that's been pretty much adjudicated. But there's the outstanding issue of the Sierra Club, which filed a motion for their attorney's fees. The hearing is set for March 26th, 2026, and this hearing will be held in San Jose on this in Department 7. Briefing by the district and Cal-Am are to be filed by January 30th, and then the Sierra Club's reply brief is due February 5th. So quick turnaround there. One case that is not listed that was asked to be reported on. This is the City of Marina and Marina Coast Water District versus Lone Star and Cal-Am. This is a case where the district is not a party, and it focuses on Cal-Am's access to water and legal rights to pump from the Cemex wells. Both Chair Riley and Mr. Stoltz testified in this case on, I think, was it Friday? On Friday. But they testified as individuals, not as representatives of the district. As the district is not a party to the action, we're not privy to all the details of the case, but this is an ongoing case. They have testimony, or the hearing is set to continue all the way through, I think, December 1st or 2nd. And then we'll see what progresses out of that. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Can you remind us of the Sierra Club fee? How much were they asking for?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have the specific number. I know that it's high and it's disputed, both in amount and whether or not they're the prevailing party. So that gets into more legal strategy that we could talk about in the future closed session.
I always get curious about that kind of question. Okay, any other questions of the attorney? Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll go to directors' reports. Any conference or meetings you attended or anything you want to report back on or to volunteer a point of view? Item 8. Anything from the board? Yes, Elvin.
Yeah, Water Master meeting earlier this month. They approved the budget. They also looking for another administrative person to help the board. Laura is retiring after 20 years, I believe. After 20 years, she's retiring. So they had 100 applicants for her
Wow.
job. They whittled it down to 6 or 7. So they're looking at those 6. Well, we are looking at those 6 or 7 for the future to start next year with. But the mayor, the chair of the board over there, he's taking care of business, as I always say. So he's trying to get somebody.
Take care of business, Mayor.
And one more thing. I see we received a letter from the school district. I hope Water Demand could get. Are we going to allocate them some water to all the schools, campuses on our next agenda or talk about it?
Yeah, Stephanie has that on her to-do list. There was kind of a follow-up. We wanted to see who actually works with the state architect and bypasses the local building departments. I don't know if that's been done yet.
Yeah, so I know the Water Demand Committee asked for it to go back through committee.
Yeah.
So if that could happen prior to the board meeting, if we're going to do this, but not to reward them, but I just feel that they need to have an allocation like we done to the military. That way they don't have to take from the cities. We have the water now. So we should allocate all the schools out of that group some water if we can. So that's a hot issue that I like to see us cleaned up. Another issue that I like to see us clean up too and revisit Marina Coast stormwater in Seaside Basin. We either need to put closure on it or how we going to handle it.
Yeah.
But that one needs to be revisited so we can put a closure on it. So people don't think we just pushing them along. Okay, thank you. That's all I got, Chair.
Mr. Chair, may I address both of those because this letter, and I appreciate.
Please do, because I was going to follow up.
So I just want you to know we've already received 8 letters of support, which means 8 letters of support have been forwarded to the Deputy Director for Water Rights. We expect a couple more here this week. City of Delray Oaks is considering their letter tomorrow night. City of Monterey is considering their letter tomorrow night. The Mayor's Association have produced a letter from the association as a whole. And we've gotten letters from a wide swath of associations and entities, but we've probably got another 20 that we're still working on securing. So it's starting, which is a very good thing. And on the second item, I did have my counterpart Rem watch our last board meeting where this issue was brought up, and I said, please watch it and then come back to me with your thoughts, and that hasn't it. So,
To clarify one question, the mayor's group, it's not the countywide mayor's group.
yeah, it
It's
was,
the county mayor's.
yes. So, there's 12 incorporated cities, so 12 mayors, and on behalf of all 12, they sent a letter. Each of the 6 peninsula cities have also been encouraged to send letters. And so we've included their mayor and city manager on the request for those, and they're starting to get traction.
Oh, congratulations on getting all the mayors countywide.
Yeah.
Good, good work.
Oh, yeah, the first jurisdiction in was City of Seaside.
Oh, of course. But while we're in there, just quick, Chair, I just want to give a shout out to Mayor Williamson for leading the charge. Him and the general manager put their heads together, led that charge to get all the mayors together. And it took us a couple of months, but he got it done. And so I want to thank
Good. Good to
Mayor
hear.
Williamson.
Good to hear. Still on this side of the,
Yeah, just one more. I want to thank Monterey One Water for sending me a bottle of water.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it in the refrigerator, getting it cooled and stuff. And I'll break it open in case of emergency. Well, I want to thank Monterey One Water for their bag that they sent and for their cooperation in helping us with this water problem. So thank you.
any other board members? I have nothing to report myself. Okay, thank you, all around. Item number 9 is, next item on the agenda, the second reading of ordinance 199. Stephanie, is that you?
That is me. Thank you, Chair Riley. Yes, so this is the second reading of ordinance 199, which makes amendments to Rule 11, Rule 24, and Rule 142.1. Back in 2016, the district adopted landscape requirements, water efficient landscape requirements that were required by the state. Since the early 2000s, the state has had what's called a model water efficient landscape ordinance. And the district has implemented that ordinance, and in 2016 adopted an updated version of it that had to be at least as effective of the state as the state's model ordinance. So ordinance number 172 added rule 142.1, which is the water efficient landscape requirements, to the rules and regulations. The water district permits, enforces, and reports on all landscape projects that require permits within our district boundaries. We are basically, we are the regional entity that manages and implements the state requirement. Next is, since in the last several years, the state has gone through a process of revising, clarifying, and simplifying the regulations. And I have to say, if you've read the ordinance in your packet, you probably don't realize how much simpler it is. It is very complicated, but the people who actually get involved with doing these permits are either landscape architects or landscape designers. They are very familiar with the state requirements, and so all the language that you might see in this ordinance is familiar to them. What we've done with ordinance 199 is to replace our existing rule 142.1. And as part of that, we've also relocated some of the landscape references that were in Rule 24. And so now everything is in one place in the rules and regulations. The requirements for landscape permits apply to new construction. And if there's a landscape area of over 500 square feet, it applies to rehabilitated landscapes that are larger than 2,500 square feet. And it also applies to landscape projects that occur within a year of completion of construction. For example, this is if there was repair that was unintended as part of a remodel project, or in some cases, what we found are landscape projects don't get actually installed until much later than the completion of the construction. So we're trying to catch all of those projects as part of our new regulation. The recommendation this evening is that this is your second reading, so you need to conduct a public hearing before adopting ordinance 199. The ordinance is exempt from CEQA. And the ordinance was supported by the Water Demand Committee, and the Technical Advisory Committee had an opportunity to review and comment on it. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those, although I tried to answer everything in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the board? This is a second reading, so this is our second run on this. So let me open up to the public. Any comments from the public?
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay, we'll return to the board. So what's the wishes of the board? To approve the second reading?
I'll move for approval of the second reading.
I second that.
Moved and seconded, and all in favor. Oops, ordinance, you need a roll call?
Roll call vote.
Roll call, please.
Director Edwards,
Approval?
Director Lindor,
Yes.
Director Paul,
Yes.
Director Gawain,
Yes.
Vice Chair Oglesby,
Yes.
Chair Riley.
Yes,
Ordinance is adopted 6-0.
thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Next item is item number 10, which is the fiscal year annual comprehensive financial report. Michelle, you're in a new place.
Good evening, Chair Riley, members of the board. Let me see. Having space here. So I'll start off by saying that the district has completed the audit of its financial statements for the last fiscal year and is providing to the board and the public its annual comprehensive financial report for the year ended June 30th, 2025. This is going to be a two-part presentation, and I'll answer the question, how did we do financially last year? And then Marina is here from the Poon Group, and she will go over, anything that she might like to highlight from the auditor's perspective. So next slide, thank you. So just starting off from the basic, what is an ACFR? So an ACFR is a set of financial statements, notes, and supplementary information that complies with the requirements that are provided by the Government Accounting Standards Board, or GASB. So GASB is the standard setting body for local and state governments, and it prescribes accounting rules. So every year it comes up with statements, and they're called GASB statements, and they refine how to account for finances and how public agencies can better portray their operations financially. And then the auditors use these accounting rules, the GASB requirements, to audit the financial statements. Next. So the contents of the ACFR are prescribed by GASB. There are 3 sections here. The introductory section just provides a general orientation to the reader, and it provides a high-level overview of the district. It has the letter of transmittal, the organizational structure, the governing body that we have. Then the second section is the main section, the financial section. It has the financial statements, the auditor's opinions, and what's called management discussion and analysis, also prescribed by GASB. And then there's the statistical section that has additional requirements that might be of interest to the reader. So this is demographic information, operating information, financial trends, etc. So next one. So this year, the district's financial statements were audited by the Poon Group. They're a licensed CPA firm. And the auditors have issued an unmodified or clean opinion, which means that the financial statements are fairly presented in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. The district did win the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for fiscal year 23-24, and we will apply for fiscal year 24-25 based on the current ACFR this year. Next. Well, before I dive into this, I just want to explain very briefly that according to GASB, there are two sets of financial statements that are provided. One is the short-term view, and these are the government fund financial statements, and you can compare that to the budget by fund. So they are providing a short-term perspective on how we did by fund, like what our operations look like. And we have three funds, as you may know: mitigation, water supply, and then water demand. So that's the government fund financial statements. And then there's what's called the long-term view, which is the government-wide financial statements. And that has all the assets and long-term liabilities. So the financial statements are provided on like both these perspectives. And I'm going to go over the first one first, which is the government funds. This is just looking at revenues and expenditures for fiscal year 24-25, and it compares it with the year before. So our revenues were 38 million, which is about 20% higher than the year before. And our expenditures were about 35 million, which is around 29% higher than the year before. And I'll get into the details in a bit. Next slide. So this is a pie chart that shows the breakdown of revenues, actuals for the last fiscal year. And as you can see here, about 2/3 of our revenues are distributed between grants and water sales. And then about 1/5 of our revenues are user fees, 8% property taxes, and then the remaining is distributed between capacity fees, investment income, permit fees, and project reimbursements. And I believe you might have copies of these slides with you. So this is a breakdown of expenditures. Again, something similar in terms of project expenditures and water purchases. Water purchases are slightly higher than water sales because we took about 163 acre-feet and injected it into the ground for the operating reserve. Our personal expenditures were about 15% of the total, and then our services and supplies, which is professional fees and operating expenditures, were 5%. Here you can see an item called a settlement expense. This is what the district will be paying. This is the water supply charge for fiscal year 23-24 that the district will be paying to the various residents this year. And that was booked as an expense last year, according to accounting rules. Next slide. All right. I don't expect anyone to read this. This is just to highlight what has changed. And so if you look at the boxes, you'll see that we didn't collect the water supply charge, so we didn't get that $3.3 million in revenue. And then our grant revenues are much higher. We were at 1.5 million the year before, and we were at 9.7 million. These expenditures are for the Pure Water Monterey expansion project. So as the construction activity picked up, our expenditures also picked up, and so did the reimbursements. So that's on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, you can see our project expenditures are higher, 5.8 versus 9.1. And then you can see a settlement expense that is being booked this year. So that's also increasing our total expenditures. Next slide. This is the balance sheet. Our total assets stand at about 37.7 million, total liabilities at 8.6 million, and we have a fund balance of about 29 million. Next slide. So what's behind the 37 million in assets? 26 million is in investments, 5.9 million is in cash, and then about 5.2 is accounts receivable. And then on the liabilities side, we have accounts payable, 5.2 million, and then we had to book a settlement liability for 3.3 million. So because the cash hasn't left us, it's a liability. And so that's on our books. So our liability is also higher than the year before. Next. All right, so now we are looking at the long-term picture. This is the statement of net position. And here you'll see two columns here. The first column is governmental activities, which is activities of the district. And then there's business type activities, which is activities for the reclamation project, which is an enterprise fund to us. And so together on the bottom right, our net position was 74.6 million, which is a 1% decrease from the year before. And and if you look at the next slide, you'll see why it decreased. Well, this is going into the details, but our net position decreased by 630,000. And for the governmental funds, it was a decrease of 400. If we booked, our revenues were lower and then our expenses are higher. So, the cumulative effect is net positions going down as somewhat expected. Now, this slide shows all our liabilities in one slide. These are only the known liabilities. Our long-term liabilities, now most of this is long-term, is 13.3 million. And that's 7.5 million in pension liability, a little less than 5 million in OPEB or retiree medical. And then compensated absences, this is what we would need to pay the employees when they leave. So this is vacation and sick leave. That's a little less than $1 million. Plus, we have a short-term liability of 3.35 million. So that is all the known liabilities. In the unknown liabilities in terms of legal expenditures that might happen in the future, that's stated in the notes. So notes 15 and 16 provide an overview to tell the reader, hey, this is probable, and because we can't put a dollar value on it, it goes in the notes instead of being in the financial statements. So before I turn it to Marina, I'm just going to say, so the big picture is our net position has gone down by 1%. Our fund balances are higher, and our financials remain stable at this point. And I'll turn it over to you, Marina.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, everyone. This is Marina Youssef. I'm the engagement manager, and we audited the financial year 2025 for the district. So in this presentation, we're going to go through our responsibilities as auditors and the management responsibilities and also the audit results that we have. Do you have the slides, please?
Yes, I'm working on it right now.
Thank you. So the content of the presentation, as I said, it's the audit responsibilities, the key financial indicators, and the audit results. Next, please. So first of all, it's in this slide, we highlight the management responsibilities related to the financials. So the management is responsible for preparation of the financial statements and also ensuring it's presented according to US GAAP. This means that the statements must follow all applicable accounting standards. And the second responsibility also is adopting appropriate accounting policies that applies to the district. We're still in management. Thank you. Also, the management responsible to establish and maintain effective internal control. These controls help the information reported to be reliable, and the organization, the district is operating with the requirement according to US GAAP. And also, the management is responsible to provide us with the documentation and support for our audit. Also, the management is the one that's responsible for the fair presentation of the financial statements, and also preventing and detecting fraud. As an auditors, we are responsible for performing our audit according to the auditing standards generally accepted in the United States, and also according to the financial audit, the standards for the financial audit contained in the government auditing standards. And we are also responsible for highlighting, So these standards outline that the requirement we must follow to ensure that the audit is executed with integrity. We're also responsible for communicating with those charged with governance This includes discussing the audit plan, sharing significant audit findings, if any, and we are also responsible for assessing audit risk. Including understanding the internal control. We assess internal control, but we don't express any opinion on the district's internal control. If any issues are identified during our audit, we are required to report them. And also our role, of course, is to determine whether the financial statements are fairly presented in all material aspects. So financials indicators. So I understand that Nichelle went through the numbers. We're going to go through it as ratios, which sometimes it highlights the financial position of the district. So the first ratio that we have is the current ratio, which indicates the district ability to pay short-term obligations. So during year 2025, the ratio is 4.12, down from 4.88. The decrease indicates reduced liquidity. It means that either the liability has grown faster than the assets or the assets has slowed down relative to the increase in the liabilities. I think the main factor here is the 3.3 million that we have in settlement liability related to water supply charge recording in the current year. Because at the same time, we have an increase in the settlement liability, but the accounts payable actually decreased by 2 million from 7 to 5.2. The second ratio that we have is the capital condition ratio, which is accumulated depreciation to total depreciable assets, which it's an indicator of the age of the entity's assets. So over the past 4 years, the ratio remained consistent, ranging from 35 to 39. It suggests that it's consistent asset aging. The higher the ratio indicates that the older the assets are. So at the district right now, we have trend between 1 to 2 annual increase in the ratio, which is aligned with the trends seen in other water districts. The next ratio is the net pension liability and the OPEB, which is other post-employment benefits liability to net position. So this ratio, the lower is the better. So over the past 4 years, the ratio was 3.6 in 2022, 40.78 in 2023, and it goes to 33.89 in 2025. The liabilities have continued to grow, and the ratios has decreased over the past 2 years, which is because the net position has improved in relation to the net position. The last ratio that we have is the total revenue to total expense, which shows the financial health of the district. So ratio below 1, that means that you have a deficit. Expense are exceeding the revenues, which we have right now in 2025. And again, it's mainly, I think, because of the 3.3 million that we have for settlement that was booked for the water supply charge. So in 2022 and 2024, it stays positive until you get to 2025, which is dropped slightly, which caused this slight deficit. Next, please. So our audit results is unmodified opinion, which is referred as clean opinion, which means that the financial statements that you have are fairly presented in all material aspects. All significant account policies have been consistently applied. estimates are reasonable, disclosures are properly reflected in the financials. And no disagreement, and everything went well with our audit. That actually concludes our presentation today, and I would like to thank Nikhil also for helping us to complete our audit. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the board? I just want to thank the auditors for not giving us a management letter. So that's the good news.
Oh, and good. Thank you.
Thank you for your work.
Thank you.
I had a question of Michelle, maybe. I'm going back to the chart that shows expenses. And you were-
Expenditures.
Yeah,
Yes.
the pie chart. And anyway, it just in the course of, I don't know whether it's something you said or something that I just clicked, but when we buy water from the water money, and we buy more than and we sell to Cal-Am, where does the excess water show up as storage in the accounting system?
It's booked as an asset. So we have capital assets, and there are two types of capital assets, depreciable and non-depreciable. So water and land is a non-depreciable asset. So we buy the water, put it in the ground, and an asset is our future revenue stream. So if we were to sell that, our asset would go down and our revenue would go up. So right now, all that water is booked as an asset on our books.
And what would that show up in a category that you
Yeah.
presented to us?
It would show up in the balance sheet.
So if you look on page 129
129 in the,
of the packet,
Capital assets.
Yeah, thank you, Terry.
you'll see a table
It says water
yes,
reserves.
okay.
and water reserves at the bottom of the governmental activities
Okay.
section. That's the operating reserve.
Oh, I see. It's in the government activities.
And it's
Not business.
valued at the actual price
Purchase
that was paid for the water, so it's not marked to market, meaning the next year, the company water rate is higher, means the value of that asset's probably higher if you had to tap it and sell it. But it's not marked to the then current price, it's just booked at the price that was paid for the water.
And then when it is used and sold at a higher price, that is reflected in the sale.
Well,
Maybe.
so this asset would go down, our
Right.
revenues would go up. But then at some point at time, we replenish the reserve, and whatever the then cost of water is would be added to the remaining balance.
So it's added on a yearly basis. I mean, I'm just
Yes, every year.
anticipating, okay.
We took that, so we look at, let's say we bought 100 acre feet, injected into the ground. So 100 acre feet times the price of the water, we take that amount and book it as asset. And then that just builds on top of each other every year. And so we have 7 million, and like Dave said, it probably underrepresents the actual value of water because we would sell water at a higher rate. But then if we have to replenish, we'll have to also replenish at a higher rate. So it will probably net out at that.
Right, so each year it happens. It'll be a different rate, a different volume amount, the amount that's extracted is, dealt with in one way, the added is in a higher price and so on. Okay. I get the picture now. I just didn't know where it showed up in the accounting system. That was really my question.
Capital assets, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question for you.
Yes,
Yeah.
Karen.
Thank you, Chair. Nishil, have you tried to calculate estimate about how long it would take for the increase in the user fee to offset the loss of the water supply charge?
Yes, I appreciate the
That
question.
it's a pretty long period, but have you tried?
We will do an exercise like that before the budget, and we will have a 5-year to 10-year forecast. Our user fees were 10% higher last year than the year before. And it all depends on the rate of increase of the user fees. It might not be linear, but the increase in user fees is offsetting the loss of water supply charge. And at what point the lines are going to cross, we can get that exact answer at some point. And it's a great way to think through it, and we will engage in that exercise before the budget. So I want to say a few years out.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then the precise
The
number of
higher,
years.
higher the rates, the higher the user fee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the current general rate case initiatives that we're proposing is there's a purchase water surcharge. And so the full amount of that year's expected water purchase of company water by Cal-Am is in a surcharge. Our user fee is on the meter charge plus a volumetric charge. So our belief is purchase water should be reflected in the base rates, not separately as a surcharge. So if we can move that surcharge into the volumetric and meter, then our user fee would even go up. So there's a little bit of a compression downward on how much our user fee is going, because they pulled a big chunk of
Mhm.
their revenue requirement and put it down to a surcharge.
Understand, yeah.
Yeah.
And there are many other surcharges, as I recall.
They've moved quite a few of them into the base rates after being peppered by the public advocate's office, but
Good,
yeah.
Good, good to
Yeah.
know. Thank you.
And Michelle, did I hear you say that for the next budget cycle, you'll have a kind of a projection of? need?
Yeah, and the only reason I say that is because it's on our strategic priorities goal number 5 list. So I have that as I'm checking the boxes
I'm
there.
looking forward to that.
And we've done it a few times already.
Yeah.
And that's why when the court case happened at the time, I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to take us maybe 5 years to catch up. And then we had the bump of 10%. It's like, oh, it may not take 5 years. And so the last look, it looked like it was at least 3. But I'm very curious to see what the rates, I mean, we just got released an advice letter on whatever the interim year, the second year of the rate case is. So that'll give us a measure of, what we'll be looking at. But yeah, it's been imprecise, but it's a good exercise. It's conceptually, it's the right question.
And yes, Alvin.
This is your first year working with this auditor?
Yes, we went through an RFP exercise, and the Poon Group was selected after a formal solicitation process. And so it's my first year working with them, but I have worked with them in past for another public agency, so I know they have capable staff.
Okay, because I'm used to seeing this in December.
Yes.
This year I'm seeing it in November.
I'm so glad you brought it up, because they also are the auditors for the reclamation project. And so one of the reasons that we thought they would be helpful to the district is because we integrate the enterprise fund with our audit. And so now having the same auditor on the reclamation and on district finances, so that kind of help with efficiencies and how things move along quicker.
Okay, is Pebble Beach happy with that? Or
Called Pebble Beach. Yes, they actually had glowing reviews for them, and so we did go through a reference check process, and yeah, they were like, by all means.
okay, I looked at the administrative committee and it seemed like they were happy with them. And then your report tonight, her report was very good. So it's transferable. You can look at it and you can see the numbers. So people don't think we out here hiding anything. So that's why I like your report. So it was good. So keep up the good work.
And, okay, another question, go ahead.
Okay, speaking of the reclamation project, are they getting close to paying off the financing?
That paid off in 2023.
Yeah.
Now, they've got a capital program that we're expecting a report from in a couple months, I guess. And there could be a need for a borrowing, maybe 5 to 7 years out, which is something we'll be looking at. And unfortunately, everyone but me, actually, our bond counsel is still around, but most of the institutional memory on the financing in 1992 is gone. But we do know we can't do the same kind of borrowing under changes to the tax code. So, but yeah, those notes got paid off, or they're called certificates of participation, but they got paid off in July of 2023. And then the water rate that each party pays came down a little bit as a result, and everyone was very happy. But we're encouraging them to keep something in there for capital renewal and replacement.
So I know that it was the district that arranged the financing, but if it's paid off, why are we still involved?
Well, there's
That's a good
multiple reasons. It's a great question. You may recall there was a tank rehabilitation that needed to get done. It was about $1 million. And of all the 4 parties, actually 5 if you count the independent recycled water users, said, oh, we don't want to just put that in an annual budget. That'll distort the basically what they would have to pay for 1 year. And because it's our enterprise fund, we said, well, we can do a fund transfer. In other words, loan the money into the enterprise fund, spend it over 3 years, have it repaid by the end users. And that leveled out the rate impact. So that's a real good reason for keeping the district involved. The second good reason is this impending capital plan and how to finance. We seem to be the most experienced at doing any financing. And there's some other really good reasons, because we are selling the water retail, which is a current point of contention under the court cases.
Mhm.
So
Thank you. Interesting answers.
We've used, yeah. The district has sold potable water through the reclamation project, which seems to be an important point in the Measure J case.
Yeah, that's a great foundation.
Yeah.
Back to the budget.
Okay, let's go. I had just something I wanted to point out to the board. The Finance and Admin Committee went over this report before, and so I got a head start on some of this. I just want to call your attention to these pages in the report. I don't want you to go look into them, think about them and so on like that. But on the report, which you got tonight, if you go to page, what is it, 207, I just make a note of this, okay, 207. And go to them, when you get home, go to them. It's got taxable property countywide, and it gives you a 10-year run on what that number was. It also keeps going down. Another page is who are the principal property taxpayers in the county. Interesting stuff. That's what I'm saying. The demographic and economic statistics for the county is listed on the next page. Principal employment by industry is listed on the next page. There's just a lot of good data here, I thought. And then I just wanted to point out, and then I do have a question for General Manager. On the last 2 pages I'm looking at, which is 212 and 213, the consumption history by residential, commercial, industrial, golf courses, and so on. And then the number of connections. So the consumption is generally down in all categories, which is what we expected, and we keep hearing that. But the connection by type has gone up. So I was a little curious, General Manager, how can the connections go up? Does that bring water use into those connections?
no, a lot of the connections are fire connections. So changes in code over time have now required fire connections, even in some substantial remodels. So there's been a number of additional connections that don't really serve water. and you hope they never have to.
Sure, because it's a fire connection, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question on that thing. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out to the board.
Is conservation in there somewhere?
Well, I don't think we have any data on.
No, I'm talking about the number of hookups.
No, not really. It's in the consumption number. So the decline in consumption is due to conservation, price of water,
Right.
technology,
The number of
behavior.
hookups going up.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I wouldn't have never thought about the fire thing. That's
yeah.
pretty good, George.
Okay, so we're gonna receive this report. Is there an action?
Through the chair, you want to open up for public
I'm
comment,
sorry.
and then you're just receiving the audit report.
Okay, any public comment on this? Anyone here? Are there any?
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay, back to the board. Okay, then we just, do we vote on the second day? No.
No, the report has been received.
Report's been received and
Good
discussed.
job.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next item, also Michelle, is item 11, which is the.
Thanks, Marina.
Thank you, Marina.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, thank you.
Of course, thank you.
I'm glad you made the connection though between Pebble Beach and the information. Okay, item 11. The proposed financial policies. This has been circulating now at several committee meetings and
This is your
it's
favorite
another-
item.
It's another heavyweight. 120 pages of work here.
Yeah. So continuing on to the next item. So this item recommends adoption of a few financial policies, some of which are related to the annual strategic objectives of the district, and there are others that are related to just streamlining financial operations. And next slide. And this side, so the last item was a really good segue to this one, because the previous report looked at the past, and like this report's looking into the future. And so it's about setting ourselves up for success in the future. So I just wanted to like draw a distinction between the two. And there are two different models within finance. So there's the traditional view of finance, which is more about control and following accounting rules and such. And then there's this evolving a function of finance, which is related to risk management and assessment. And so we are moving towards a model that's more based on compliance to like developing empowering fiscal frameworks, a model that's more transition based, that's like the old school way, and then the new school way is integrated decision making and support that helps us meet not only our current needs, but also our future aspirations. So this is just a transition slide. And if you go on to the next one. So all these financial policies, there are three reasons why we are proposing this. Number one, this is to meet the district's strategic objectives. Goal number 5 is about protecting, enhancing, and maintaining the district's financial health. These policies are about enhancing financial stability and proactively managing our financial obligations, risks, and anticipated liabilities. And number 2, the government code regulations have changed. And so there are requirements that we need to have in place before we can issue debt. And then number 3 is just standards of performance. And this is related to also GFOA Code of Ethics, which is about reliability and consistency. And so this code says that as public officers, we can show reliability and consistency to the public by providing reliable information, but also developing strong financial policies, because these policies provide the rules of the road against which a standard of performance can be measured by the community. So those are the broad reasons. So there are 5 policies that are being proposed. The first 2 policies, reserves and pension OPEB, those relate to goal number 5. Then we have the unclaimed monies and budget policy that's related to financial operations. And then we have the debt management policy, which is to comply with Government Code 8855. All right, now we're going to get into the meat, and I'll try to do justice to these policies, starting with the reserves policy. And We had the good fortune to discuss this over 3 FSC meetings. I'll try to provide the gist here. So what is the reserves policy? It's a risk management tool in a sense, and it's about financial discipline. Now, in theory, any public agency needs to generate enough revenue to recover its cost of service, but we cannot increase our revenues in the short term. And so that's where reserves come in. We can control our costs better in the short term than we can control our revenues. So the reserve policy does 3 things. Number 1, it's trying to quantify the different liabilities that we have. Then it's trying to come up with the minimum target levels for each liability in the form of a reserve. And number 3, it's coming up with a way to adjust or reassign those reserves if each individual reserve does not meet the minimum target. That's the sense of it. Now, the reserves policy that we're proposing 9 different types of reserves, starting with the general reserve. So the general reserve is to take care of any fluctuations in revenues and expenditures that might happen. And the minimum target level here is setting aside enough funds for at least 6 months of operations, plus any expected payout. And the reason we included that was because at the very bottom, if you see, there was a reserve called the litigation reserve, which is removed. And that's mostly because of perception. We don't want to say we have X amount of dollars for litigation purposes. Instead, any expected payout, that would be part of the general reserve. The asset replacement reserve is for replacing our facilities, equipment, vehicles, and the minimum target level there is money to replace that asset, which is going to be spread over the depreciable life of that asset. Then for debt reserve, we don't have any debt, but if we were to have it, the policy proposes a minimum target of 1 year of debt payments or any requirements that might be required through the bond covenants. For pension and OPEB, the policy proposes reserves to meet the funded ratio, which I'll go over. And then the policy does not propose any minimum target levels for flood drought, capital project, and rate stabilization. So rate stabilization reserve is funds that will be set aside to mitigate the effect of changing rates on ratepayers. This is a typical reserve that a lot of utilities have. If we were to become a full-scale utility provider, then this is something that could be heavily utilized. And then we also have compensated absences reserve for sick leaves and vacation payouts. And the policy proposes 25% of the total liability here. So in the previous presentation, we saw we had about $1 million in compensated absences liability. So we would set aside about $250,000. And the thinking here is we don't anticipate that more than 1 or 2 tier 1 employees or 3 or 4 tier 2 employees will leave the district in 1 year. And so this reserve would be enough to kind of buffer that impact. So that's a summary of the reserves. And next slide is about the assignment of the reserves. And this is a process of adjusting or recalibrating the reserves when one reserve is higher than a minimum target level and one reserve is lower. Like, how do we reassign? How do we make this assignment? And so if the general reserve is higher than the minimum target level, then the excess, so what this is showing is a waterfall model, how reserves will be assigned. So first, any part of the general reserves that's coming due to that's because of the excess capacity fees that the district has, that would be assigned to the capital reserve first. Then any excess reserves from step 2 would be assigned to compensated absences. And then any excess reserve from step 3 would be assigned to pension and OPEB reserve. And so this slide is actually doing 2 things. It's going over the second policy, and it's also showing that the reserves policy and the pension OPEB policy are actually connected. So to mitigate the pension and OPEB liabilities that we discussed in the previous presentation, we propose 3 strategies. Number one, targeted funded ratio. We are proposing a funded ratio of 80%. So the total assets in the pension plan or in the OPEB plan or trust would need to be at least 80% of the liability in pension or OPEB. And this went through several rounds of discussions in the FSC, but I'm happy to speak to it. The second strategy is a Section 115 trust. This is a tax exempt trust, and there are pros and cons to having the trust. But the benefit is once money is set into the trust, it grows at a much higher rate of like 8% because the money is invested in the stock market. Right now, our money that's in the treasury portfolio cannot be invested in the stock market, and so we are earning very low returns. And then the third strategy is accelerated payments to CalPERS or issuing pension obligation bonds. So if the interest rate were to reduce significantly, then the district could issue pension obligation bonds, but this requires its own discussion if and when we were to do that. And then the bottom portion of the slide, this is something that we did over one of the FSC meetings. All it showed was like one, I think there's animation built in there. So let's say if the total balance in our general reserve is 21.3 million, which is what you'll see in ACFR, it's around that ballpark. And the minimum target in the general reserve is 19 million. So that excess 2.3 million will get assigned to the capital reserve, compensated absences, and pension reserve. And we went through an Excel exercise here. So as a result of that, if you add the current balance in the reserves, we have a current balance in the pension and OPEB reserve, plus the assignments, put it in the Section 115 trust, then our current funded ratio for the pension reserve would increase from 75% to 77%. And then our funded ratio for the OPEB reserve would increase from 13% to 26%. So we have thought through how the policies will be executed. And this isn't an academic exercise for us. This is something that we can very well execute. Now I'm going to go through something that's not perhaps as intense. These are the other three policies. This is called the unclaimed monies policy. And here the district is trying to be transparent on when it's going to reclaim funds that have been issued to a vendor. So if we write a check to a vendor or make a payment and those payments remain uncollected for a period of 3 years, which is called a dormancy period, and the district has made attempts to contact the vendor, then we will go through what's called a due diligence process and reclaim those funds back. The screenshot that you see here are actual payments that the district will reclaim, and some of these go back several years. This policy also distinguishes between vendors and rebate pays. For rebate pays, we will reclaim within 1 year because we don't consider a rebate payment similar to a vendor payment. A vendor payment is when someone performed a service and we are paying them. A rebate payment is just based on application. And anyone can reapply for a rebate after 1 year, but we won't be carrying those unclaimed payments on our books for more than a year. So that's the unclaimed monies policy. Yes, sir.
Have we notified these people that we have money for them?
Yes, staff reached out to these vendors several times. Then we made a list of all these vendors and published it in a newspaper 2 times, a local newspaper, and this is following state law. And then we still have these unclaimed funds. And some of them are like going way back to 2012. So maybe it's too far back and we won't get a response. But we need a mechanism to reclaim those funds so that it's not sitting in our books as.
Right, I agree with you. And if you undone it, put the money back in our pockets. So,
Yes.
good,
Well,
thank you.
thank you. So the fourth policy is the budget policy. This is formalizing a direction that the board provided before. And what we did was we have clarified the wording and kind of streamlined the wording, but we have retained the original intent. And so there were 8 elements that were adopted by the board, and we are formalizing into a policy document that we can refer to. The only addition is the level of budgetary control. And all this says is if the expenses would be higher than what's budgeted at the fund level, then we would come back to the board and ask for an increase. Anything below that, if it's a division or an account, that is at the staff level. So as long as if there are changes at the account level or at the division level, but the fund budget doesn't increase, then staff can incorporate those changes, and then we don't have to come to the board. So the 8 elements from earlier, I'll just run through them. So now this policy would propose adopting a balanced budget, leveraging outside funding sources, recovering the full cost of service, investing in projects that meet strategic priorities. And if there was a reduction in expenditures, then we would try to minimize the adverse effects on service levels and the environment. So that's the budget policy. And then finally coming to the debt management policy. This is following federal and state guidelines, and it's demonstrating that we are committed to our long-term capital and financial planning process. And here, the California Debt Investment and Advisory Commission requires public agencies to have a debt management policy that fulfills 5 criteria. And these are those. So number 1, purpose for which the debt proceeds will be used, type of debt will be issued, integration with the capital improvement program, policy goals, and internal control procedures. And so the policy that's being proposed addresses these 5 criteria. And I won't get into the details here, but just a few takeaways from the policy. A debt can only be issued for a capital project when the costs justify the financing, there is a critical need, and a secure revenue source has been identified. And the total term of the financing has to be less than the term of the capital improvement project. So we don't want to have debt for an asset that doesn't exist. And then further, any identified revenue sources need to be sufficient to service that long-term debt. We would pay attention to credit worthiness. What this means is the district would like to lower the cost of borrowing, which means the district will try to get the highest possible credit rating. But at the minimum, it needs to be better than equal to or better than an investment grade rating, which is BBB. The policy also specifies debt limits. And here, if the district were to issue what's called a general obligation bond, then the total amount of that debt would be less than 15% of the assessed property values. And I think this is a state requirement, but we've tried to acknowledge that and put it in policy so it doesn't get forgotten. And then we cannot issue debt with balloon payments. And then finally, the policy also provides a framework for reporting and controls. So there are all these reporting requirements from various agencies. There are ongoing disclosure requirements that are stipulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. There is arbitrage review requirements required by the IRS. There is annual reporting required by CDAC. And then there is reporting that's required by what's called the Municipal Securities Rulemaking Board. It's called EMMA. And we are putting this in place so we can dot all the I's, cross all the T's, and we can follow the guidelines that we need to across all these agencies. So overall, all these policies show to the residents, to the investment community, and to the bond rating agencies that the district is committed to a strong financial position, and we have standards in place to not only meet statutory review, but also just be a sound fiscal steward. And that concludes my report.
Yeah, thank you. I know you've had to run through this several times. It's like extra innings and just on and on. I would like to ask the general manager just a general question about these policies as a management tool, and how do you view them?
Well, I think it's long overdue. We need to build a stronger foundation for the district moving forward. And this will send a positive signal to the marketplace. There's a few things in there that we'll never leverage, but there are several things in there that we would, that we need in place before we could actually proceed with a buyout, for example. You know, we won't do general obligation debt probably ever. It requires a vote. But we would do revenue secured enterprise fund debt, and that rate stabilization fund would come into play in meeting our debt covenants. And so the whole idea of, is your mortgage to buy the assets lower than all of the savings that you're creating by not paying money to New Jersey and to San Diego and so forth, all comes back to what would your debt look like? And your debt will have covenants in it. There will be debt coverage ratios and so forth. So very important to put that into place. We're hopeful also that after the checks go out for the water supply charge reimbursement, that we will go to the rating agencies for a shadow rating or a predictive rating as to what our credit rating would look like. So important for that. Putting some discipline in place around the reserve policies with these targets, minimum targets, and the waterfalling. Also helps you in how we make decisions. The one caution there is we've said, because, and his slide did reflect plus expected out or expected act, whatever the payouts, yes. That we don't want to really commit to much of anything. For example, a trust fund for PERS or OPEB until we kind of get past that liability for a bench trial. But having that discipline in place, you know, a lot of these things are discretionary and you could at some point decide to undo them, but it also makes your life easier when it comes to, well, what do we do with this money? Do we have too much money? Do we have too little money? So I think all told, all of these are important steps in a positive direction.
Yeah, and my understanding from the discussion we've had before is that no money is being allocated in any category. This is to set a policy so that we have an understanding of how we might treat X, Y, and Z in terms of whatever the issue is in the financing world and the debt world.
Yeah, I think some money will move to fill, you know, each of these categories. He pointed out, for example, the capacity fee. So when you take a water permit and you pay our permit fee, part of that fee, well, predominantly that fee was to reimburse us for the capital projects that we've done to enhance water supply, because you're buying into the system. And so having receipts that happen to be in excess of what you budgeted for in that current budget go directly to the capital improvement fund makes sense. And so some of those actions will happen in short order. So
Yes, go ahead.
So those actions that you just talked about will happen in our next budget, probably.
yeah,
It should happen right now, you know,
yeah, I would say,
of our next budget.
Yes.
yeah.
And my next question to you, sir, CFO, what other policies do we need?
Let's just kind of this one.
I know you did a lot of work. I listened to both times you brought it up to administrative committee, so I can understand. So is it something that you're gonna miss that you're gonna be bringing back to us
Yeah,
like this?
thank you for that question. So we started with 2 policies that were required because of the strategic objectives. And the idea was, while we are doing this exercise, let's try to do a good job and, you know, fold in other policies that are needed. So we looked at goals and then we looked at our needs. And now we have 5 policies. At this point, I think we are in a good position, good shape, but circumstances change. And if, you know, something is needed down the road that we haven't thought through, then we'll definitely consider that and bring it to the board.
Okay, I like that because you did a lot of work on this. You did a lot of work and I like the work, and it's something that we probably need to be done 5-10 years ago, and here it is now. So good job.
Any more questions from the board? And so on, we'll go.
Yeah, I had a question.
Okay.
Could you go over the level of budgetary control? You said there was two levels that. What was it? I don't know, was it department you said or the
At-
county level?
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. The fund level. So the level of budgetary control is, I'm going to start with the top, the organization, the total budget for the district. What is that? Let's say it's 44 million.
No, I just,
Then
I
there's
got,
the-
I got all that. I want to know the two at the bottom. I didn't.
Oh, the two at the
Yeah.
bottom. Yeah, division and activity or account.
Could you give us an example of anything that may be in a division or in a division?
Yeah, a division would be, let's say, administrative services has more funds and the GM's office has less. And if we need to move money in professional services from ASD to GM, then we can do that as long as we aren't going over the budget at the fund level.
No, I got it. I just wanted to get the example. And that's, Chair, that's where I have a disagreement with that part of the policy. The whole thing sounds good to me. It's about time we come up with it. I like the way we prepared for eventualities of being a big water purveyor, right? But when you start talking about taking away control from this board to understand where the money is being moved from, then I have concerns, because it's not just during the budget cycle, we approve money in the different funds, and then underneath that, it gets moved around. Because when we're talking about the budget, that money is put in to those different areas. For example, the GM's account, like we just heard, it's put in there because of what they say they want to do at that time frame.
Right.
And something happens during the year, that money can be moved, taken out of there, and moved to a different account and a different purpose, and we wouldn't have to be informed about it. And no matter how much it is, as long as it's underneath that fund balance, then we don't need to know about it. We don't have no say in it. And I have issues with that. You know, we need to keep a little bit more control of where the money goes, how it's being spent, when it's being spent, and if there's a need to change it from one account to another, then there shouldn't be no problem to bring it to the board and notify us that it needs to be changed over. And so,
Can I respond?
well, I really don't have a question. I'm just saying, you know, everything else I'm okay with. Everything else is good. I'm not trying to delay the process, but if that's not yeah, go ahead. Say what you got to say.
I just want to say, I really appreciate where you're coming from, and I can see the concern.
Mhm.
And in the ACFR, there is a sentence which says, what is the level of budgetary control? We already have the control at the fund level, but we never had a policy that actually backs it up. Now, because we have 1,500 line items in our budget, and those items are broken out between object codes, divisions, and funds, with all the permutations and combinations happening. If, let's say, we spend an additional $100 in one activity, and then the budget doesn't lock it out, the financial system allows us to spend the additional $100 in an activity as long as there are savings somewhere else. But it will prevent us from spending it if we were to cross the budget set for the fund. So it's not something new. And again, this is totally a board decision, board discretion. I'm just trying to provide some additional information on how this happens. And the level of budgetary control, again, this is, most public agencies have it at the fund level. Now, some could have it at the department level, like let's say, cities, they're huge. So the police department versus, the finance department, they might have it at the department level. Now, as the size of the public agency starts to shrink, then it makes sense to have it at a fund level. Otherwise, we're trying to account for like two small variations, and then it's just going to drive, the finance team bonkers, and there's only one accountant that we have. So we want to, it's a trade-off between flexibility and how much, administrative burden we can endure. So that's just a backup.
Question, comment over here.
Yeah, go ahead if you have a comment.
So I think there's things you can do to kind of, make sure the board knows how some of these funds are transferred. Just speaking from experience from next door, if there was a fund transfer that was over $75,000, that always was reported to the board. So there's things you can do to make sure that the board is well aware of every financial transaction. I think if it's $45 from this account to that account, I don't know if you guys really want to know.
Well, and you'll see large ones in mid-year budget update. We do some things now that we don't have to do also. I've got a certain approval limit, but I tell my staff, hey, if it's big, we still need to put it in front of Finance and Administration Committee, even if it's less than my discretionary approval. We still put it out there. So I think in practice, you're going to get that feedback, but
We don't want to be in San Benito County.
Through the chair, though, I appreciate all that. And that's my fears are still there. You throwing out, I got 1,500 line items. You throwing out, well, something maybe $100. But what I was getting to is the 75,000, something like that, because if you don't have a 75,000, then it could be 250 that we don't have to discuss here. It's not brought before us. And so it's not about $100. It's not about, candy bars, right? It's about money. And if there's no level, then there's no level, right? So it should be some type of level in there where it comes back to this board. And I don't think it creates too much of a burden for us to do our responsibilities of being accounted for this money. And so if there's a number that somebody may want to throw out, then maybe the board can decide that, or they can just disregard what I'm saying. But let's not belittle it by talking about $4, $100, or anything like that.
No, your point's well taken. Actually, there's an additional level of review, and that happens at the purchasing policy level, where anything above 25,000 needs to come to the board. And so if you are to enter into a contract or a purchase or a procurement that's above 25,000, then it needs to come to the board. So there's a tiered authority. Division managers can spend up to 10,000. The general manager can spend up to 25, and anything above that would be a board decision.
Is there a policy out on that? That's your next policy.
no, that one got approved
That was
about
adopted.
a year ago.
The 25 is already a policy. We're talking about changing it from one department to the next. And again, somebody could throw out 75, somebody could throw out 100, right? I don't care, right? I'm not trying to limit it. I'm just trying to make sure the board does not, give away its authority to, after the budget is passed, that nothing has to come between us. That's different from his authority to sign a contract. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about internal controls. And so if you have a number,
I do want to make sure that we address your concern. So we could do one of two things. We could just take out that requirement for now, but it is reflected in the ACFR. Or we could bring it down to a division or we could come it back.
Or you could just say, if the general manager or his team wants to move $75,000 or $100,000 from this department to the next department, they would come and inform the board.
Right.
And that way it meets your requirement and it meets what you guys are trying to do. And I don't understand, for me, that's pretty easy to solve that, other than taking it out. And then you say we're not meeting some type of a requirement somewhere else,
My on-the-fly comment,
Yes.
because I like symmetry, is we could put that level at 25,000, because then it kind of conforms with the purchasing limit. So any movement above 25,000 would require board approval. That's just my on-the-fly thinking.
Dave, you got a number? I'm not trying to limit.
No, I think that works. And the point's well taken, because you've got three funds that are pretty big. And so there could be, as explained, there could be large sums that would be moving from one fund to the other, so. But 25,000 is from a symmetry standpoint, makes sense because it's used as a level in various places in our work, so.
Could we have, just picking up on this point, could we have could we approve the policy tonight with the proviso that you will come back with a $25,000 limit on program transfers?
What I would recommend through the chair is seeking a motion to approve the proposed policies except for the budget policy and have that come back with the direction that you provide, maybe as a consent item at the next meeting. That way you can see it written before adopting it.
Okay, would that work?
Well, but through the chair, I don't know why we need to see it. It's straightforward. It's not in there now. All we're saying is before you move the money, transfer between accounts has to be below $25,000. Anything above $25,000. You know,
Yeah, as a proposed amendment,
yeah.
so you could do it either way. Michael suggested one path, but you've often adopted something subject to a word change or an additional sentence or what have you. So we could certainly do that if that's the number that everyone wants to agree on.
Through the chair, also, if you're looking for parity in terms of matching the board authority to that of the general manager spending authority, and maybe instead of putting a number, putting it as any movement of funds above the general manager's spending authority would require board approval. That way, in the future, when you're amending the general manager's authority, you don't have to then also dig through this policy as well. So that's the only reason why I was recommending maybe bringing it back. That way we could wordsmith it appropriately, but it's the prerogative of the board.
Do you want to make a motion?
Yeah, I could do it, but I trust that if we gave them direction now, that's what they will put in the policy.
Yeah.
But if it's easier to bring it back, then
No, I think that we can do it, but I think his suggestion's
Yeah.
good because then
yeah.
it doesn't have to be adjusted when,
But
A good solution.
don't put it on consent.
right. No, we'll do it and if somebody says, hey, you want to show me where you added the language? We'll show you where we added the language, but it's pretty clear direction. It's understood. We can do that.
Can I just say something? Because terms mean, they have a very precise definition, and an account versus the division is two different things. So are we saying 25,000 at the division level
Yes.
or at the account level? The
The
division.
division level, I think what we're talking about.
Okay.
Can you live with that?
We'll see the impact
Well,
of that
is that-
decision.
You're the one suggested 25. So is that too low? That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to, let me finish. I'm not trying to limit you guys. I'm not trying to add more data points where you have to track. It could be $100,000. But my point is, when we're talking about accounts with millions of dollars in there, without a limiter, then that means 250, 100,000 can be moved, and we don't know about it. I don't understand why it's not. For me,
Yeah.
that seems, something we should be doing. And so,
That's a valid concern. Now that you said that, it does make me feel that 25,000 might be, the higher the limit, the more flexibility we have. But we also don't want to, we also want to honor the concern. And so
I will, I know the chair wants us to move on. So I'll just, if I can remember the motion, I'll just put a motion that it comes back worded the way you guys wanted to word, add a limit, whatever you guys want the limit to be. I don't care what the limit is. Just don't make it matching the fund level, right?
Well, I care enough to make it parallel to what you.
Well, yeah, I mean, think about it. We meet every month. And if we had to have a special meeting because something drastic needed to be addressed, we could do it. So 25 is fine. There's symmetry. We'll make it work.
Okay.
And if we find it's not working, we'll come back to you.
And the motion intends to adopt the new policy consistent with
All
the
of it.
current general manager limits or whatever that designation. And then we adopt the policy.
You got
With that
that?
change.
So moved, Chair.
Second.
That's all you gotta do. It's like-
That's a good point.
I'll follow my boss, so.
Rebecca,
Rebecca.
Yeah.
the general council has
Second.
the clear policy and the motion. He has the motion.
Let me
And the
just
intent of the.
let me just make sure, there probably has any comment, I don't think
Yeah.
I asked anybody, and, oh, I'm okay.
Chair Riley, I see no raised hands.
Okay, so the motion is to adopt the policy with the modification of the top.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nays? Motion passes.
And
Thank you.
before you close the meeting, I just wanted to clarify something I said earlier. Yes, there's been quite an addition of fire connections, but there's also been entitlement connections. So Sand City, the new Marriott, for example, is a new connection based on entitlement. Pebble Beach approved a bunch of lots, and there have been homes being built over the last 4 or 5 years. These aren't large numbers, but would also account for an increase in residential connections or commercial connections, those kind of things.
Okay, good. No, thanks for, I'm glad I asked. Okay, nothing, no more business before the board?
One
You have a
question
question?
for
Yeah.
Dave. Are you aware of cities that have put on their agendas the letters of support for this?
Yep, and not all of them are requiring a meeting, but Mike's at Delray Oaks tomorrow. I'm at Monterey tomorrow. We have Seasides already. Carmel has said that all of them are going to move on it. So it's just a matter of when. The unincorporated county may not come back to it until December, even though we've asked for December 1st. We'll take it at any point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Looking around, I don't see any action. Meeting adjourned.
Right.